Hello and welcome to another Procreate tutorial where today I'm going to show you how to create this firework design over a really simple city. Now apologies if you hear a bit of a croaky voice throughout this, not too well at the time of recording, so if I go a little bit loopy in the video I do apologise. Now as always you can grab all of the requirements from the description down below. You can grab the canvas size, everything else is built into Procreate. They're all brushes that are available when you download it to start with. So you're just going to need the canvas size and the palette. Now, if you didn't already know, I post weekly tutorials here on my YouTube channel, but I also post exclusive tutorials every single month to my patrons. I'll throw up the latest 3 on the screen now. If you want to get access to a catalogue of nearly 80 at the time of recording, with 3 more added every single month, they are available using the link in the description down below. So with all that said, enjoy the tutorial and let's get started. So once you've created your canvas, the first thing we'll do is create our first set of the city skyline. So we're going to go to our colors and we're going to go ahead and grab the third color on the top row. We're going to go to our selection tool and we're going to use the option of rectangle, and color fill needs to be turned on. So it needs to be blue like that. And then we're going to go ahead and create this sort of city sort of box. Now I'm going to start roughly around about here and draw a box and let go. Now as long as you cover the whole of the bottom area, that's perfect. Then what we can do is we can get started with creating all the city buildings, and I'm going to keep my entire canvas there just so I can see the entirety of it. And then I'm just going to start off by drawing in some rectangles, some squares, and you can make some sort of stick close to each other. You can leave little gaps. It's totally up to you. You can make some a little bit skinnier than others. You can make some a little bit more rectangular. It's totally up to you, or a little bit boxier. The only thing I kind of recommend is try to sort of make them a little bit sort of less repetitive. That's the only thing you want to look for, is just look for repetition, see if you can vary it up. And as you progressively get a little bit wider, I would try and make them a little bit sort of higher, just slightly, ever so slightly, just towards the edges. And we're just going to carry that on the whole way to the right hand side. And then again, repeat that over towards the left hand side. So we'll just create some cool little sort of city skyline. It's way in the distance, so we don't need to sort of spend too much time focusing on details. Just look across your skyline that you've already done and make sure that you don't do anything sort of wildly sort of different, and some buildings slightly too tall out of nowhere. But we can always amend it in a second. I'm just going to go ahead and then try and vary that up again, make them a little bit smaller. I'm occasionally having 2 touching each other, and that's fine as well. You can just have some fun creating a pretty simple, straightforward skyline. And once we get to the end, we've got our final building in there. Then tap on your selection tool when you're done, and then you should be able to just take a look, triple check that you've got everything that you like. Maybe you can go ahead and then tap on your selection tool again, and then if there's too many sort of areas that are a little bit too sort of repetition or repetitive, should I say, we can just block in some additional ones here and there, get rid of a few little gaps. I'll go ahead and block that one in a little bit more. I'll tap on my selection tool again just to triple check, and then I'll go back in and just make some further amendments. Put a block in there. I think I'll block in that one there too. I'll add an extra one there. And we're just trying to occasionally just look for little areas where we can vary it up. This area over here, for example, super repetitive. Tapping on my selection tool. That's nice and varied now. Now we're going to go ahead and leave that as it is for a minute. We'll come back to the city later on. We're going to go ahead then and change the background color. So we're going to tap on our background color in our layers. We're going to go ahead and grab the bottom right color in the palette. Hit done. Then we're going to create a new layer and make sure we drop it underneath that city skyline. We're going to go to our colors and grab this blue color here, the middle color in that far right column. Your brush wants to be set to airbrushing and the soft brush, and your size wants to be something fairly large, maybe around about sort of 26%. I'm just going to rotate, because I'm going to go left to right in behind that skyline, and then just create a lovely gradient of blue. So nice and bold down here. You can see I'm pressing really firm, and then as I get further up the canvas, I'm just going to let that just fade out. Create a lovely, lovely little sort of blend of the colors. Then what we'll do is we'll go to our colors. We'll grab the color in the top right of the palette, and we'll go ahead and create another new layer, just so we can adjust it if needs be. And we'll just go very lightly in behind the skyline, just create a little bit of a yellowy kind of glow, just a little something like that. Keep it nice and subtle. You don't have to go too firm or too hard with it right now. We can adjust it again later on. Now, while we're sort of working in this area, let's go ahead and create another new layer. Let's go to our colors and double tap in the top left of the disc to select white. And your brush wants to be set to the option of luminance and the light pen. I've maxed out the size. I'm just going to add some stars, keeping it really simple, just a few little taps here and there. And this is pressure sensitive, so if you press really firm, you'll get a nice big dot. If you tap really lightly, you'll get some really lovely small dots. Now I want you to try and sort of the ones towards the bottom area here, just fill them in with some really lighter, smaller dots, and then a few more towards the top. So just make your way across your night sky. The only thing I would say is try to sort of vary up your weights a little bit more, and see if you can just create lovely little constellations in the sky, nice and random. You don't want them sort of all weighted the same, or too many sort of repetitive kind of looking areas. We're just gonna try and leave some gaps if needs be, just fill out the sky. Of course, we've got our fireworks to fill this in anyway, but these are just going to be the odd sort of stars that break through that night sky. A couple of lovely little stars like so. And for a minute, we'll go ahead and tap on the layer. We'll tap on it again and just drop its opacity down to 50% or around that marker. So that's your background sky done for a minute. So you can go up to your layers and you can swipe from left to right on all three of those ones, excluding the city, and hit group, and that will just collapse that down. Just keep things nice and easy and tidy. If we go ahead and create a new layer, we're going to go up to our actions and we're going to go to the canvas tab, and we're going to go ahead and turn on the drawing guide. Now you need to edit your drawing guide, so it's the option of symmetry here, and the option is set to vertical. Change the color across this top line if you need to, so you can see it on the screen, but you'll end up with this line in the middle. Now we need to make sure if we go back to our layer, if we tap on it, it needs to say drawing assist turned on. So it will say assisted underneath, so it's using the drawing assist. If we go to our color and we go ahead and grab the middle color in the first column, and your brush wants to be set to drawing and the evolve brush, and the size for that is actually set to 2%. So we can now get started with our firework. And we're going to start off at any point on here. We're going to make it a little bit smaller than we need to start with. And we're just going to create like a little bit of an explosion from like a singular point. So just start off very, very light with your pressure of your pen. This brush is pressure sensitive, so you can vary up your weight and add in like the occasional sort of stronger line like that. But to start with, we're just going to try and create a few little sort of specks. You can see I'm somewhat creating like a very sort of light amount of pressure, just to create lots and lots of little sort of dashes in a line. And we're spiraling out from that point. The occasional longer line is fine. We'll go ahead and just try and round it off a little bit though, in its shape, of course. We want it to be quite circular. And then you can get in there, once you kind of sort of created this soft look to it, you can get in there and maybe create some stronger lines in here. So just sort of give your firework a little bit more structure. I don't want them to necessarily be too strong, so I'm picking a point, and you can see I keep on doing it occasionally. I just want to try and make sure it's a little bit sort of more solid towards the center, and then as it sort of disperses out towards the edges, we end up with a little bit of a softer look to it. And then I'm just going to add in a few little scrapes up here on the line as well, as fine. Just add in a couple more there, just to again round that shape off. And try to do less. You don't need to do too much. Just taking a look at it as you zoom out always. Don't get lost in those details, as I always say. Just see what you can come up with, see what you like the look of. That looks pretty good to me. I'm quite happy with that. I might just add in like a couple of tiny little sort of scrapes that just make their way a little bit further outwards, to try and sort of round off the shape a little bit more. That looks pretty cool to me. I'm happy with how that looks. In fact, let's just add in a couple more towards the center, just to make it a little bit more solid in there. Lovely stuff. So this should be what you're aiming for. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the layer and we're going to swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The top one out of the two, we're going to tap on it and change the blend mode to multiply, and you'll notice it gets a little bit darker. All we're going to do is just grab our eraser, tap on the eraser, and make sure we go to airbrushing. So if we go to airbrushing and we grab the soft brush, probably around about sort of a 4% or 3%, in the center here of your firework, your sort of main area here, just go round in a circle very lightly and blend outwards. We want the center here to be as bright as it can be, and then towards the outer edges it gets a little bit sort of softer and a little bit darker as well in its color. So you end up with this lovely sort of center point. Then what you want to do is pinch those two layers together. So just simply pinch them together, or tap on the top one and tap on merge down. We're then going to swipe it to the left and duplicate it. We're going to go to our adjustments and Gaussian blur, And we're going to swipe from left to right until we get a 9% Gaussian blur, which is going to give it a little bit of a glow. Lovely stuff. And then again, we'll pinch those two together. Then we're going to go ahead and turn on the lights with this. So we're going to go to our adjustments. We're going to go to bloom. We're going to want to set our transition up to max, our size to 19%, and our burn to 42%. And if we get there or there enough, that's fine. We can swipe from left to right and go all the way through until we get to a wonderful 77%. Now, I need to sort of point out at this point, this will be determined somewhat by your firework that you've created. If you've made yours a little bit different to mine, you may need to potentially drop the bloom down in case it otherwise gets too bright. You know, for me, I could maybe drop it to 77%. You end up with that lovely bright core, and then the outer edges are still nice and sort of detailed. So try to sort of mess around with your settings to make sure it matches up to what yours looks like. You may need to again make some adjustments personally. So if we go to our layer, then it is now done, and we've got our main firework ready to go. Now we're not going to go ahead and create multiple fireworks. We're going to use this exact same one multiple times across the sky. So we can swipe it to the left and duplicate it. And we'll group these together by swiping from left to right and hit group. So all of our fireworks are now in one group. This top one here, we're going to leave that, but the bottom one, we'll go to our cursor. We're going to go ahead and use the uniform option and scale this up in size. We will rotate it, and we're going to create a massive amount of sort of fireworks across this night sky. So I'm going to go ahead and move this one over to here. I'm going to rotate it as well, push it up into this corner here. And then when you're happy with the position, go straight to your adjustments and go to hue, saturation and brightness, and mess around with the hue slider here and pick a color that you like the look of. For example, I want this one to be a little bit more pinky on the left side there. So I'm going to go to 40%, mess around with the colors until you're happy with how it looks. And we're going to go ahead and create a massive sky of color here. So I'm going to go ahead again, grab the main one in the middle, swipe it to the left and duplicate it, and the bottom one, just grab your cursor and we'll scale it up in size. We'll rotate it maybe a little bit, try and sort of make it a little bit more unique. I'll scale this up probably a little bit more, place it in this little spot here, go straight up to my adjustments, hue, saturation and brightness, and I'm going to make this one like a little sort of blue color. So I'm just going to scroll through, try and find the color I like. That one looks lovely. Let's go up to all the way down to none, all the way to the left hand side there, and tap on my adjustments when I'm done. Again, we'll just carry on duplicating the main one, the one underneath, grab your cursor, scale it up or down in size. It's totally up to you. I'm going to put like a slightly smaller one in this space. Now at the minute, you'll also notice I've not quite gone to the edges yet. I'm going to try and create a center area first and then scale all the fireworks up at the same time. So I'm going to fit one in here. I'll maybe rotate it a little bit just to make it a little bit more unique. Go straight to my adjustments and hue, saturation and brightness. I'll go to the right this time. Now try and find a different color that I like the look of. So you can just keep scrolling through here until you find something. I quite like the look of like a purpley color in here. That would look quite nice. Purple, and also try to sort of maybe mess around with your saturation, but you want to try and have that nice bright white sort of center point to it. So try not to sort of adjust that too much. I'm going to go for a lovely purple color. Again, I'll go to my main one, swipe it to the left and duplicate, grab the bottom one, grab my cursor. And again, I'm going to scale this one up quite large now and then rotate it and then put it up in this top right area just to really fill out some space. And then I'm going to go to my adjustments, hue, saturation and brightness, and I'll just change this one slightly. I'll make it a little bit warmer, just down to 44 there. I'll go to my middle one again, swipe it to the left and duplicate, bottom one out the two, grab your cursor, scale this up in size, rotate it to a sort of angle that you like the look of. I'm going to position this one here now just slightly underneath that one to the right. Lovely stuff. Adjustments, hue, saturation and brightness. And we're going to slide through our hue slider, and I'm going to try and grab another sort of purpley tone up here. Try and put one over there. Lovely stuff. Go back to our main one, swipe it to the left and duplicate. Bottom one out the two, grab your cursor. And I'm going to sort of put one more over here on the right side just to sort of balance out the sky so it's quite even in terms of number. Feel free to put some in the gaps as well. So I'll put this one here for a second. I'll pop this one just there. I'm going to go ahead and go to my hue. And then once we're there, I'm going to make this one a little bit sort of more pink toned, so a little more pink there. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my main one and I'm going to grab my cursor and I'm going to scale it up in size. I want this one to be the main focal point of our design, and that's why it's still at the top. And I want to position that again in the center. Now make sure you go to snapping and you turn on snapping so that the orange line appears here to let you know that your firework is perfectly in the center of your canvas. I'm going to scale that up in size until it is pretty much the most dominant one. And because it sits at the front, it's going to sit in front of that purple one in behind. And again, at this point, we may want to go ahead and, for example, I'll grab the blue one here, duplicate that and make a quick adjustment by chucking in another one just in behind there maybe. And then I'll go ahead and grab a color that's not over there. So something like this pink one, grab my cursor, scale this down in size, rotate it the other way, and I'll put one just in here. And I'm going to move it to the back in the group just so that it's like hidden underneath there, but it fills in the space a little bit. Tap on my cursor when I'm done. Now, as I mentioned, we can then go ahead and we can tap on the group because it's all together. We can grab our cursor and we can scale this up in size. So we'll scale this up. We'll make that sort of stretch across the sky right up towards those edges as well. And as long as we make sure our center one here is in the center, which looks pretty good to me, we can tap on our cursor when we're done. Now we're going to go ahead then and we're going to tap on the group and we're going to collapse it down. We're going to swipe it to the left and duplicate it. And the bottom group, tap on it and flatten it. So it's all on one layer. We're going to change the blend mode from normal. We're going to change it to the option of pin light. And we're going to go to our adjustments. We're going to go to Gauge and blur, and we're going to swipe from left to right. And we're really going to blur this out. And this is just going to add in some like color into the night sky in the background area. So I've gone up to 84% there. And then I'm going to tap on my adjustments when I'm done. Now, while we're working in this top area, we're going to go to our layers. We're going to go ahead and create a new layer above the firework group. And we're going to go ahead and change the blend mode from normal to add. And we're going to drop this right down, first of all, down to about 40%. It's probably going to go lower than that again, because we're going to add some flares in here, which they're pretty optional, but it's totally up to you if you want to sort of skip this part. But I'm going to go ahead and go to my brush. I'm going to change the brush to the option of luminance. We're going to go to the flare. We're going to make sure it's maxed out in size, and we're going to go ahead and use sort of a manual pick of the color here. So we're going to go ahead and grab a color here with our finger. We can grab a lovely sort of orange for this middle one here, and we can tap in the center here and drop the flare in. Now, again, we're going to probably adjust the level of this layer in a second, but I just want to get the flares in so you can at least see them. I'm going to go ahead and grab a blue tone. I'll pop a flare in here. Now, you kind of want to drop to a minimum of 64%, and then a maximum of max size, of course. I'm going to grab the pink tone. I'll drop a flare in the center of there. And we're just adding on all these lovely light rays. Again, we're probably going to tone this down in a second, so don't worry too much. We're going to go ahead and grab a lovely sort of pinky tone from up in here. We'll go for a max size up here because it's nice and large. We'll grab blue again over here. Drop that size down to 64. Tap in the center of it. Try and make sure it's as close as you can. If you need to, turn off this layer and then grab your color and then go back to it, because at this point this layer is getting pretty full. So we can turn it back on. We can max out the size of this flare, tap in the center. Again, we can turn this off. We'll grab the purple color and we'll turn it back on. We'll add a flare in the center there. And we'll go ahead and we've got the final one to do, which is this pink one here. We'll grab a pink, drop the size down, go back to the layer, turn it on, and drop a flare in there too. Now, of course, this looks crazy bright at the minute. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go up to our layers. We're going to tap on the layer and we're going to bring that down. We're going to bring that down to something that's a lot more subtle, but still gives that entire sky a little bit of this light sort of blurring almost to the top area. So I'm going to drop that down to probably around about sort of 12%, where you've got a few of the rays coming across the sky, but ultimately like you've filled in a lot of sort of the glow in the sky. So again, that's totally optional. It's totally up to you. If you want to sort of tone that down, you can even just turn it off. It's totally up to you, but I like the look of it. Now I'm going to go ahead and just turn off my actions here for a minute because we don't need the drawing guide on at the moment. Now we're going to go ahead and create the rest of the city. Now it's actually really easy to do. We're going to go ahead and grab that top layer, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. We're going to grab our color and we're going to grab the middle color here in that top row. So the middle color of this 3 here. So it's the top of the second column, and drag and drop it into this space here. You'll notice it gets a little bit darker. We're going to grab our cursor. We're going to go ahead and use the uniform option and just scale this up in size. scale it up, and we're going to continue until these buildings really do look like they are of a closer nature. Now, if you need to, I can undo that for a minute. We can go to the layer, tap on it and invert it. You may be able to see it a little bit more. It's only temporary. But again, we'll go to our cursor, we'll use the uniform option, we'll scale it up in size, and then you can see it against the ones in front. And we're going to go ahead, or behind even. We're going to scale this up and continue to do so until we end up with a little bit sort of a scale like this. And again, we're going to somewhat try and make sure we are using the snapping and making sure it's in the center of our design. So that looks pretty good to me. I think potentially there's the option here to maybe make that a little bit taller, but we can also flip it horizontally as well, just so it doesn't sort of match up too closely to the one behind it. Then we'll go to our layer, we'll tap on it and we'll invert it back. We'll swipe that to the left again and duplicate that once more. And the top one, we're going to go to our colors and grab this one here in the top left of the palette. Drag and drop it into this bottom space here, and you'll see it turns a little bit darker again. We're going to zoom out once again and do exactly the same trick. We'll go to our layer, we'll tap on it and we'll invert it just so we can see it. We'll grab our cursor and we're going to scale this one right up using the uniform option. So scale it right up. We only want a few buildings here in front of us, and they're going to be the closest ones. And again, we'll flip this horizontally just so it doesn't match up to that previous layer. Now, these buildings here, I want them to somewhat sit like here, where we've got a few buildings here that somewhat sort of get right up close to that horizon line of the previous set of sort of layers. Now, we can go back and adjust the ones in front. So I want to sort of play around with this until I end up with something a little bit like this, where some of them are close, some of them have got a nice gap, and then you'd be able to see the rest of the city through the gap. You can maybe drop that a tiny bit, like so, and then tap on your selection tool when you're done. Go back to the layer, tap on it and invert it. And then maybe just go ahead and invert the middle one, just so you can see your buildings, and see if you need to just maybe drag them up just a tiny bit, just like so, just to bring them into space a little bit more. And tap on your cursor when you're done, go back to the layer and invert it. So now we've got our city, we can now go ahead and start to create some layers to separate this. So what we'll do is we'll tap on the very far city layer there, we'll create a new layer. We'll go ahead and we'll swipe from left to right on both of them and group them together. So that's going to be our background sort of city area. We'll go to our colors and we're going to grab the middle color in the far right column. Brush wants to be set to the option of airbrushing and the soft brush. Probably a size around about sort of 15%, it's not critical. Just go left to right until you start to see a little bit of a glow from the bottom in between some of your city gaps here. So just a little bit of a glow, nothing too sort of heavy. You don't want to make it too heavy, but just a little bit of a glow in towards that city area at the bottom. Lovely stuff. I can just about see that now breaking out. We'll go to our layers. We'll go up a layer to the next layer of city, create a new layer, tap on it, clipping mask it, and we will go ahead and select both these layers and group them together. Now this layer here, we'll go ahead and we'll go left to right and we'll break this out of its space as well. So we're just creating those separating sort of lighting areas. You can see now as I make my way towards the bottom, we're sort of breaking the layers of the city apart from one another. So all of our layers now separated, we can create some really cool lighting. Now, we created this group earlier with the fireworks. We're going to swipe it to the left again and duplicate it. We'll tap on the bottom one, we'll tap on it and we'll flatten it into one layer. We're going to go to our adjustments, we're going to go to Gaussian blur and we're going to swipe from left to right until we blur the layer out up to around about 30%. Now it's not staying up here, we need it for our city. So if we go ahead and grab this layer, we'll go ahead and we'll move it up into the first group, which is this background area here. We'll go ahead and we'll tap on it, we'll clipping mask it, and we'll also tap on the layer underneath and we'll tap on it and clipping mask it. So all of them are clipped to that back area of city. If we grab this area of fireworks that we just blurred out and grab our cursor, we need to move this down, and then you'll start to see some of the colors start to come into play on top of the city area. So I'm going to bring that down to around about here for a minute, and you can see the blue there, the pink there, the purple here, and it looks awesome. It's right on the edge of that city skyline. But we don't want to light up the entire area of the buildings. So what we'll do is we'll go to our layers, we'll swipe the layer itself that everything's clipped to the left and duplicate it. You'll need to grab the bottom one and drag it above the fireworks in this group and it will clip itself. If it doesn't, just tap on it and clipping mask it. Now at the minute, we've got the same layer clipped to itself and it's hiding everything. But if we go to our cursor, we use the uniform option and we scale this up in size a little bit. Again, very critical that we go ahead and use snapping and turn this into the center point, hitting that center line, and then bring that down just a little bit. So we're aiming to hit the orange line here and then move it down. And you'll see the tops of all the buildings now, the sort of top layer of it now be colored with the color of the firework. Now I'm going to move it up a little bit because they're so far back. We don't want to add in too much color back there. So a little something like this where you've got this lovely little gap. So what you're doing there is you're moving the silhouette of the city down a little bit and then revealing the other two layers that are clipped just to try and break this out a little bit. Now we do just need to rearrange these two layers here. We need to grab this one here, which is the little bit of glow from the bottom, and move it in front of that layer. And that area back there is done. Now we can go ahead and we can repeat those steps. We'll swipe the fireworks to the left and duplicate them because we need them again, and we will go ahead and drag them up into this group here. And we'll put it underneath this glow from the bottom. And we need to repeat the same steps. Now, what we're also going to go ahead and do is just as we get further closer, we're going to grab our cursor, use the freeform option on the firework glow that you cannot just see yet, and we're just going to flatten it down quite a bit because I want to start to reintroduce some yellow tones and some more colors of these fireworks up here. So I've scaled my fireworks down to this kind of height. I'll tap on my cursor and we'll repeat the same steps. We'll grab the city skyline silhouette, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. We will drag it above the fireworks that are clipped to it into this gap, and just make sure if it unclips, just clip everything. So we'll just clip all 4 of these layers together. We'll grab the silhouette of the skyline, grab your cursor and move it down again. And again, we want to use the freeform option and make this a little bit bigger, just by a few pixels, and then position that again in that center point there, and your buildings again will have that lovely glow. And you want to sort of scale this up a little bit so that the sort of depth and the color on top of these buildings is a little bit sort of more so than the ones on that sort of horizon line at the back there. You should end up with something like this. Tap on your cursor when you're done. Then let's go to our layers. We'll repeat that for this layer here at the front. So we'll go to the fireworks, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. Drag it above onto the top layer of city. So you're going to need to go ahead and tap on it and clipping mask it. It's now clipped to this one right at the front. And again, I'm going to grab my cursor. I'm going to grab my freeform option first of all and just scale the fireworks glow down a little bit so I can bring in some yellow and some of the extra colors. Then we'll go to our layers. For this top city group, we can now swipe them from left to right and group them together. We'll grab the silhouette of the city, swipe it to the left and duplicate it, and we'll grab the bottom one out of the two, drag it in front and it will clip itself to it. And exactly the same steps. We'll grab our cursor. Using the uniform option, we will go ahead and just scale this up in size, a little bit more so than the ones beforehand. Make sure again we hit that center orange line. And what that does is by hitting the center orange line, it adds the angle correctly. See how it's lighting up the top and the sort of right side of the building, but on this side it's the top and the left side of the building. So it's just matching the angles a little bit more. And you can scale this up in size. We can make that a little bit bigger yet again, hitting that center point just like so, just to brighten up those buildings. Bring the angle down a little bit as well, and then tap on your cursor when you're done. Look at your city. Look how cool that looks. It's just reflecting all the light coming from above. Now we can go ahead and add some lights to the city as well. So we can go to this layer here at the top. We'll create a new layer. We'll tap on it and we'll clipping mask it. Now we're going to go ahead and go to our actions, and we're going to bring in our drawing guide again. We're going to turn it on, but we're going to edit the drawing guide. We're going to go to the option of 2D grid. We're going to go ahead and make sure the opacity is 36%. The thickness doesn't really matter either, but your grid size wants to go all the way down to around about 23 pixels or 22, doesn't really matter. And then you can go ahead and hit done. Now you notice you've got this grid all over your city. If we go to our layers and this new layer we created, if we tap on it and make sure it uses the drawing assist. Now this one works in a way that you can only draw vertically or horizontally. So if we now go to our colors and we go ahead and we grab this color here, it's the second color in that second row. Go back to your brush and we're going to go back to the option of drawing and evolve again. We're going to create some really simple building lights. So what we're going to do is, for example, let's just start over here. In the darker silhouette area, just draw in some lines vertically. You'll notice I cannot sort of draw in any other way, again, as I mentioned, other than vertical and horizontal. Now to start with, I just want you to create lots and lots of vertical lines, a few that go all the way down, a few that don't, a few that come up from the bottom, a few that's just like, primarily at the top. And we're just creating lots and lots of lines as if there's lots and lots of windows in here. And I'm pressing really lightly with my pressure just to create some really simple lines. And we're going to go through them in a minute with the eraser and go horizontal through them to break them up a little bit. So you can create lots of very small lines if you like, or you can create some really long ones. But these are going to be some really simple lights for our skyline. So let's just go ahead and continue to create some along here. Turning on all the buildings, and again you can leave some if you like leave some big gaps here and there just to maybe show that, I don't know, this building's off or everybody's gone home. There's no office parties in this one. So we can create some big gaps there and pressing really light with my pressure again, because each little dot there is essentially like a little window. It's a really simple way of doing this, using the drawing assist to our benefit so we can keep things nice and easy and nice and sort of straightforward, where we can just draw straight lines all the way down. Nice and easy, straight lines. And I'm leaving gaps in between a few of them just to maybe show sort of the differences in the buildings. Maybe some buildings have, like this one here was quite compact, so maybe there's lots of small windows, whereas these ones are maybe lovely big offices with like big glass windows, big glassy structures. And go down here too. And I'll create a few up here that are a little bit sort of lighter and brighter. If you zoom out, take a look at your city, it's now sort of really turned itself on. Now if we go to our eraser, we tap on the eraser and we go into the option of drawing and evolve. We'll go to a sort of 2 or 3% brush size. We're now going to rotate our canvas a little bit, so we're going to go horizontal through each building and just chop away and break up all those lines. So what you'll do is you're kind of like turning off a few lights and you're kind of looking for any really long lines that you maybe created and breaking them up and creating individual windows this way. So every time you run through one of your long windows that you created, long lines, you're just breaking it up. And I can only draw horizontal because it's still using the drawing assist. So I'm just drawing very, very quickly just to sort of break up the windows, break up all these little lights. Every time I've got a long line here, I'm just looking to break it up, create some nice, unique line work and little dashes in there. Break through all the little windows there, breaking through them. And you can really sort of take away from the bottom of a few if you like, you know, like towards the bottom area here, you could really take away from them and then just leave the top area nice and sort of turned on and bright. And if we go ahead and take a look at it now, look how cool that looks. Now we're going to go ahead and just while we're at this top layer, we're going to create another new layer. We're going to go to our colors and we're going to grab the color in the top left of the palette. We're going to go to our brush and change it to airbrushing and the soft brush. But the brush size probably around about sort of 13%. We'll just go left to right, if not slightly larger than that. I'm just going to go left to right and just sort of darken up the bottom area of the canvas just a tiny bit. So in between these buildings, I'm looking to just darken that up a tiny bit and just sort of blend out our canvas towards the bottom. And we're going to go ahead and add some city lights to the buildings in behind as well. So we're going to go ahead and collapse that top group down. If you're worried about your layers, you can tap on it and flatten it. It's totally up to you. And we're going to go into the middle group. We'll go ahead and create a new layer in that group at the top. Tap on it and clipping mask it also. Tap on the layer, turn on the drawing assist. Go to your colors and grab that middle color again in that second row of the second column. Brush wants to go back to the option of drawing and evolve. And we're going to zoom in on our little city. And we're going to create some little lights in these ones here. Now you just want to do a few. We're going to do exactly the same tricks as we did a second ago, but just a few in here. And we're going to lower the opacity of these as well, because as things get further away, you should technically lose a few of the details. So we're going to do exactly that in a second. We're going to tone this down, bring the opacity down of it. And you can see I'm not adding quite as many as I did in front of it. I just want the odd sort of really bright area of windows to be breaking through. And we're definitely not going to add any on the sort of skyline right on the horizon there, because again, it's too far away. You don't need to sort of introduce details in things that are too far away from us. Let's making my way across here. You can drop some down into these gaps here as well. Feel free to, you know, really bring the city to life at the bottom as well. But once you've gone across and you're happy with your coverage, you can see I'm being really light and sparing with it. I'll add some in there too. we'll go ahead and we'll grab our eraser. I've been quite light already, so I don't need to do too much erasing in here. But again, just go horizontally, break up any vertical lines if you've added any. And then go to the layer, tap on it and bring the opacity down. We want to bring that down to around about 60%, just so that the layer there is a little bit sort of less colourful compared to the one in front. Now, if we just go up to our actions for a minute, we turn off our drawing guide because we don't need to see that grid lines sort of system on the screen anymore. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into our layers. We're going to go down towards sort of the background area here. We're going to create a new layer in front of the background sky. We're going to go to our colors. Again, make sure we're using this color here. It is the second color in that second column. Your brush wants to be set to the option of luminance, and we're going to use the light pen. Now this is pressure sensitive, so you're going to need to press really lightly or just lower your size down and press quite firmly. It's totally up to you. But we're going to go ahead and create some just lovely sort of firework lines in the sky. So I'm going to go to the maximum size because I preferred that look. And I'm just going to sort of create little lines here across the sky for our fireworks. We're going to lower the opacity down of them in a second anyway. And sort of let them sort of arc inwards a little bit. So you've got sort of the lines facing inwards into the center of your canvas. It just helps everybody sort of focus towards the middle. But we're going to lower the opacity of them anyway, because they're too bright. We don't need them as bright as the fireworks, do we? We're going to bring them down to around about sort of 35%. And now at this point, it's just a matter of making any final adjustments. Now, what you can do is we can go into our fireworks, for example, and we can create some smaller ones to fill the gaps that are a little bit further back in our city. So for example, we can grab a firework that we like the look of. So let's go ahead and I'm going to grab that one there, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. I'm going to drag it out of that group for a minute down here. I'm going to grab my cursor, I'm going to scale it down using the uniform option really, really small, down to sort of this area here. And I want to just fill out sort of this bottom area here. I'm going to bring that down in size. I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab another firework. I'll grab our main one and duplicate that, drag that out of that group, down towards where we've got the other light blue one, and I'll group those two together. Now we've got two, so we can drag it from the main group into the bottom group, and with that we can grab our cursor, scale it down in size, make it really small, bring it quite low down, as if there's fireworks just across the city everywhere. What firework is this? Let's grab that one, duplicate it, drag it down out of that group, so we'll hold it, drag it down into the bottom group, grab your cursor, scale it down in size. Now, I don't recommend you sort of grab one of every colour. You don't really need to do that. I recommend you probably grab, like, I've got one of each kind of tone, you know, like a pinky colour, a warm tone and a cool tone. And then just in here now, just start to duplicate these and just sort of spread them out across. So just get a little bit crazy with it and just spread them across, scale them down in size. And it doesn't have to be thought through quite so much, to be honest with you. Just sort of scale them down, create some really lovely variations in the firework scales across the sky. I'll move this one across over towards the right. We're going to blur these in a second anyway, so we'll just have some fun just filling out that space a little bit more. And I'm just going to make sure, as I swipe from left to right every single time just to duplicate it, that I've got sort of a good spread. I'm then going to go to that group. I'm going to tap on the group and I'm going to flatten it all into one layer. Go to my adjustments, go to Gauge and Blur and swipe from left to right till they're just nice little sort of colourful orbs. So around about sort of 5 to 6%. I'll go to the layer and I'll just tap on it and I'll bring the opacity down of it as well. And once you've got sort of one layer, you can duplicate that. You can grab your cursor, you can maybe scale it down in size again and maybe fill out some other areas. It's totally up to you, it's totally optional. You know, I could drag that up to like here, for example, and really lower the opacity down of that as well, just so it doesn't take away from our main fireworks. But it's totally optional. I can swipe it to the left and duplicate it again and maybe drag it into that space too. Now the only adjustment I want to also make is if I go ahead and collapse this down, I'm going to go to my main city here at the front. And I've got my firework glow here on the top of the buildings. I'm going to swipe it to the left and duplicate it. I'm going to change the blend mode from normal. I'm going to change it to add. I want them to be super bright here at the front. So I'm going to duplicate that to an add. I'm then going to go into the middle group as well and swipe that to the left and duplicate it. So the fireworks in the middle group, change that to add, but I'm going to drop the opacity down to 50% so that things get slightly more dull as they get further back. And the other adjustment, I'm going to go to my layers. I'm going to go down in front of our background sky here. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go to my colors. You see this color here at the bottom of the second column from the right. I'm going to go to our brush library and go to airbrushing and the soft brush. And I'm going to go ahead with a 10% brush size, just go along that city line here. In fact, slightly larger than that, maybe about 15%, and just introduce a little bit in the center and let it blend out into the yellows on the side. A little bit of sort of this pinky tone. I just want to add in a lovely little bit of color in there, just to brighten it up a bit. And if we go ahead and we pinch with 2 fingers, we go full screen with 4, we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this firework display design. As always, please be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram by tagging me in your finished creations. You can do one better and share them with the community that I've got over on Discord. Both will be linked in the description down below. A massive shout out to my patrons who help make these videos possible. If you want to get your name featured in videos, but more importantly, get access to a catalogue of nearly 80 tutorials at the time of recording, with 3 more added every single month, it just continues to grow. So be sure to join the family using the link in the description down below. And if you like this tutorial here on YouTube, you'll probably like this one on the screen now. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.